Welcome to the MOOC course on Public Financial Administration, and today we are going to discuss about the topic recommendations of the Finance Commissions of India. The 11th Finance Commission is one of the milestones in the Finance Commissions because history of Finance Commission in India. There is another commission which is not being discussed normally in our discussion so far is the Planning Commission. Planning Commission was appointed by was created by the Government of India through an executive order. Particularly, it was a brainchild of Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. And this Planning Commission was basically been called as an extra constitutional body. And the Planning Commission has been entrusted with the job of looking into the capital expenditures of state. We have seen already the Government of India, government has two important expenditures. One is revenue expenditures and capital expenditures. Revenue expenditures means maintenance of the government, particularly giving salary, maintenance of the buildings, maintenance of the establishment and payments and everything. All the committed expenditures comes under the revenue expenditures. And the capital expenditure is basically all the new developmental expenditures like payment of roads, payment of railways, construction of buildings, construction of school buildings, construction of various other things in country, all comes under the developmental expenditures. Normally, the revenue expenditures are made from the revenues of the government, revenues collected by the government. So, government has various types of revenues it is collecting, taxes, non-taxes, and then fees, fines, forfeitures and so on. Whereas, in the developmental expenditures solely depending upon loans and other borrowings from the national as well as international agencies. For example, IMF, World Bank and other Asian Development Bank. All these banks are lending loans to the Government of India. So, most of these projects under the Planning Commission, developmental projects as decided by the Planning Commission, as finalized by the Planning Commission is being financed by the loan from the various banks, international donors. So, that is why you see there was a distinction, there is a dichotomy was made. One is revenue expenditures were entrusted to the Finance Commission. So, Finance Commission will be asked to look into only the revenue expenditures of the states and suggest remedies for this. Whereas, the Planning Commission has been asked, entrusted the responsibility of looking into all the developmental expenditures of the states. That is why the states, when they are spending their money, they make a distinction between planned expenditures and non-planned expenditures. Planned expenditures means all are financed by the Planning Commission, whereas non-planned expenditures have to be met from the state's own resources. So, here what happened, this particular distinction of or keeping the Finance Commission away from the developmental expenditures was first stopped, and then the 11th Finance Commission for the first time was asked to look into both revenue expenditures and developmental expenditures, and then these two expenditures have been the 11th Finance Commission was asked to look into all the expenditures of the states, both revenue and capital expenditures, and then suggest remedies, suggest recommendations for the fulfilling these deficits. Suppose the states are, when they are facing deficits both in the developmental as well as revenue expenditures, they have been, the 11th Finance Commission is asked to suggest some remedies. So, in that backdrop, the 11th Finance Commission is one of the important milestones in the history of Finance Commissions in India. So, the 11th Finance Commission was appointed in 1998. The main recommendations of the commissions were the state share in net proceeds of all central taxes fixed at 28%. You see that this is a very important development, because previously only certain taxes, income tax and excise duties were shared with the states, but now the 11th Finance Commission said all the taxes levied by the union government should be shared with the states, except a few taxes exclusively given to the union government. One is what you call the customs duty, and then various other duties, for example, corporation tax. These are the two important taxes, tax resources of the union have been given exclusively for the union government. Whereas, in the case of 11th Finance Commission also, it's except these two taxes, all other taxes should be shared with the states. So, that is why you see that it put some overall lump sum percentage of proportion of funds should be shared with the states. That is why you can see the states share in net proceeds of all central taxes fixed at 28%. Then 1.5% of net proceeds of central taxes recommended for distribution among the such states which do not levy sales tax on sugar, tobacco and textiles. Some states they don't levy sale tax on sugar and tobacco and textiles because of some various reasons to encourage these industries. So total share of the states in net proceeds of all union taxes is 28 plus 1.5%. So it's totally 29.5% of net proceeds of all union excise duties are to be shared with the states. This is very important development since days of 11th Finance Commission. There are other recommendations also 11th Finance Commission have done. For example, it provided a special award for the local government, particularly 10,000 crores have been allocated for those states where for local, particularly rural infrastructure is very weak, where the local government infrastructure is very weak, where the local governments are not organized properly. So for those there is a 10,000 crores have been provided by the 11th Finance Commission. What is the basis of the distribution of states there? 28% or 29.5% by the 11th Finance Commission. One is population 10%. You see that the population is no more given a weightage like previously it was 90%, 80% like that, but now under the 11th Finance Commission it is only 10%. Then the income, for example, what is the income of the state? Because some of the states are well developed, some of the states are not developed. So this is what we call the regional imbalances. So for example, among the states in India, some states are categorized first state, second state, third state in income categories. Per capita state income is very high, and whereas some states do not have that much per capita income. So based on this particular calculation, those states which are having their state per capita income is very, very low. So that being taken as an important criteria, 62.5% have been allocated for it. Then area, for example, there are some states which are very smaller states like Goa or Arunachal or the seven sister states in northeast, something like that. Small states are there, but there are large states like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, then Madhya Pradesh, then Himachal Pradesh, Bihar, UP. So all these states, for example, UP, Bihar and then Rajasthan, these three states alone 50 crore population are living there. So this is a large area, not only large area but also a large population. So that is why area 7.5%. Then index of infrastructure. The other thing here, it is a very important thing, infrastructure. How much roads are developed, how much roads are rural roads are available, semi-urban roads are available in a semi-urban area. All these have been taken. Then tax efforts, this another thing is 5%. Tax effort is basically the time taken, the effort taken by the states to increase the taxation. This is another thing. Then fiscal discipline, this is another thing, because during this period, Government of India enacted this Fiscal Disciplinary Act, and the Fiscal Disciplinary Act means that the extravagant expenditure of the states had to be curtailed. Because this is a very important thing, because suppose undertaking tools, undertaking various other kind of extravagant expenditures should be avoided. So which state taken so much of measures to reduce their expenditures? So this is called fiscal discipline. You see that totally there is a different approach has been made by the 11th Finance Commission. So this is the very important development. Then the 12th Finance Commission appointed in 2002 is basically because the first milestone has been laid by the 11th Finance Commission. 12th Finance Commission simply followed the same foot of the 11th Finance Commission. So, as appointed in 2002, the main recommendations of the 12th Finance Commission is state share in net proceeds of central taxes now have been from 29% to 30.5%. Then additional excise duties in lieu of sale tax as part of the full tax is there. Then basis of distribution of states is that population 25%, income distance 50%, area 10%, tax effort 7.5%, fiscal discipline 7.5%. These are all very, very new features, particularly in Finance Commission's approach in dealing with this fiscal federalism in India. Now, I have said that there are 15 Finance Commissions are there, but I just taken only this 12 Finance Commission basically for the purpose of analysis, because most of this 13th, 14th and 15th Finance Commission have been a lot of criticism is there, basically particularly the 14th Finance Commission, where those states which are contributing more they get less, those states which are contributing less they get more, based on the various infrastructure indexes of the infrastructure. And this is for example the infrastructure, income taxations, tax support, fiscal discipline, all this basically on this many states they are lacking behind. And based on this point, many states are getting more funds, more allocations from the center, and this is being raised as an issue by the various states. So in 15th Finance Commission try to set right these issues there. So now after going through the various issues, various finance commissions, we have one thing is very important. One is from first Finance Commission to 10th Finance Commission, the approach of the Finance Commission was almost more or less same. There are some slight changes here and there based on the socio political and economic development that taking place at the time on the backdrop of in the country. But whereas from 11th Finance Commission, it is an important milestone where the approach of the Finance Commission totally drastically changed, where that both revenue expenditures and capital expenditures have been mingled. States expenditures have been looked into from the overall holistic point of view. Now from this perspective, let us discuss some of the issues in central state financial aid. The list is not exhaustive, it is not over, it is basically just for the sake of understanding this context in which we are speaking. For example, the centralization of revenues, that's already we have seen. Centralization of revenues means the structure, tax structure in India is more of a centralized rather than decentralized. So all those component states like states or local government, they don't get anything from the tax structure, normal working of the tax structure. So it is being focused mainly on the centralized government or central government. So that gave rise to various issues, particularly those people who have control over the central government. They try to use this particular mechanism to manipulate many things. Then centralization of central state functions. So now what happened when the financial resources are with the union government, automatically it is not only here, it is even the United States Federation, in Canadian Federation, you have the same issue where the federal government tried to dominate the entire scenario. And the same is the case in India also. You find centralization of certain state functions. For example, many state functions have been brought into the concurrent list like education, agriculture and so on, slowly media, health. So all these issues, all these subjects which are predominantly in the state list have been brought into the concurrent list. Why there is so much of because union government want to introduce or influence, not only influence but also because there are certain issues which go beyond one state. Because suppose for example if there is a corona or the COVID problem is there, then it is not a problem of one state. So the union government has to take action against it. So it has to take various measures, particularly in controlling corona or COVID or something, arresting or preparing, mobilizing resources and so on. So in this kind of issues comes in, basically central government or union government has to resort to enter into some areas which are exclusively for the state government. Then inter-regional inequalities and transfers. Basically among the states there are many inequalities or imbalances are there. For example, you cannot compare one state here today. For example, if you want to make a comparison with one state to another state in India, that is not logically correct, because every state has its own unique strength and weaknesses. So we have to develop this each state according to their own requirement and according to the agenda, because agenda of the people who are living there. So that is why these inequalities among the states should be looked into not only as a matter of dispute, but it should be looked into a matter of developmental issues. Then the transfers, suppose how much money you can transfer. So this is another issue. Then public borrowings and indebtedness of the states. So states are in debtness. So indebtedness of the states are basically rising, basically because of the states have to fulfill their obligatory functions, because there is an expansion of population on the one side, growth of population. The other side, there is an expectation of the population also increasing. So there is a competition. It is not only competition in business or trade or something, it is also competition in politics also, because you have to outweigh the other political party, outweigh the other state. People always refer, you go to that state is performing well, and why not you also do it. So this kind of things lead to many borrowings. The states, they resorted to borrowings, public borrowings as well as indebtedness to the central government. Then the taxation of services. Basically, once you go for taxing the services, it looks a very lucrative or a very handsome way of looking into collecting or augmentation of revenues. But in reality, what happens once you services are taxed, automatically people who are getting this service or depending on the service, these services are also being affected. So it indirectly affects the population. This is nothing more. Even though service tax is a direct tax, more or less a direct tax, it is now becoming an indirect tax. So people, the consumers, the people who are approaching, citizens who are approaching this, people who are doing this service or providing this service, they are facing this issue. Then financial autonomy of states. The another thing is, once the states are totally devoid of funds, they are totally depending on union government, so their financial autonomy is totally affected. Then towards what you need is that it is not basically union government and states have to face, or central and state government have to face this kind of dispute, or it is not dispute, it is basically it's a national development. So that is why you have to go through, you have to approach this problem particularly as a cooperative federalism. So concluding remarks, what you can say is, first of all, there are 4 important points you have to understand fully, particularly with regard to the recommendations of the Finance Commission. One is, the Finance Commission provided in the Constitution of India is an important device in the working of the federal policy like India. Polity, not federal polity like India, because this kind of arrangement is not available in the United States. The government has to appoint temporarily the interstate transfers, whereas the recommendations of Finance Commission appointed so far have been taken various issues that across the country. That is another thing you have to understand. Then contribution of Finance Commission is in the set in the once you analyze the recommendations of the Finance Commission so far appointed in India, Finance Commissions constitute a very important device that is being provided by the Constitution of India. Because it is normally we used to say that grants in aid that is being provided to the states by the union government is one of the innovations. Because so far, if you look into the various federations in the world, most of the federations like United States, for example, very famous federation, where there is no permanent commission, there is no arrangement that is available in the United States Constitution. So the federal government have to appoint the temporarily some interstate financial transfer commission. Then based on that only it is being provided. Whereas in India, it is being provided as a kind of a mechanism, a kind of a regular mechanism. Of course, the constitutional experts, they feel, most of the constitutional experts, they feel that the Finance Commission should be made as a permanent body, because Finance Commission is being appointed and then within 2 or 3 years it is being submitting its reports. But at the same time, what happened, once the reports is submitted, sometimes they take this recommendation seriously, but of course it is mandatory. Finance Commission recommendations are mandatory and they have to implement it. But at the same time, Finance Commission is not being taken very seriously by many of the governments. So that is why the Finance Commission should be made as a permanent body, so that it can make some kind of a real contribution to the problems like a multi-state like India or a federal polity like India. So there are 4 important ways you can look into this, particularly the recommendations of the Finance Commission. One is, Finance Commission provided in the Constitution of India is an important device in working on the federal policy of India. Suppose if the Finance Commission is not available, who has to set right these issues? This is a kind of a very important question. Even though we can say that we can argue out that the Finance Commission have not done its duty properly, or it is not duty adequately, but it is not that like that, because in a country like India, it is very difficult to come to some kind of a conclusion or some kind of a very important solution for acceptable to everyone. But Finance Commission have done on the whole, particularly the formula like a DR, whether it is a DR Gall formula or the 11th Finance Commission's formula of sharing the taxes. All these are basically very important milestones that is basically solve many problems. If you are resorted to solving problems among the states or among the regions, it is not possible. But the Finance Commission is taking a very, very complex issue. It is a very complex issue and it is able to do it. And the recommendation of the Finance Commission appointed so far have been taken various issues that arose in the country. So I told you already, on the backdrop of many things like starting from the Indo-Pak war and then Chinese aggression and then the developments in politics like Janata Party's regime, and then financial crunch, particularly that in 1989 when the government of India or India don't have the adequate foreign exchange reserves, the government has resorted to the liberalization policy. And then all these are basically reflected. You can see that on the backdrop everything happens, and the Finance Commission reflects everything. So that means the Finance Commission is sensitive enough to make recommendations according to the needs of the country. Then thirdly, the contribution of Finance Commission is in the set writing vital issues in federal polity like India, like regional imbalance. This is very important, because regional imbalance, you can say that why you have to pay, this state is contributing more and that state is not contributing more, so why that state should be given. No, this is what actually sharing is all about. That's called cooperative federalism. The concept of cooperative federalism or concept of federalism is not actually conflicting to each other, but it is a come together. People of different kinds, people of different nature, people with the different problems, they come together. Because for example, some states which are now branded as a very backward state, they are not actually backward in real sense of the term. They are having some problems they have. So these problems have to be set right, and slowly we learn, we also learn, and everybody learns. This is another thing. In this backdrop, particularly politically very sensitive areas, and Finance Commission is actually dealing with that issues, and that is where basically we have to take into that the role of the Finance Commission. Next one, the ultimate aim of Finance Commission is to bring about cooperative federalism. That's what last slide also we have seen. What is cooperative federalism? Cooperative federalism means in a federal setup, federal polity, you have federal government and the component states. Suppose for example in the United States federalism, the national boundaries can be altered, but the state boundaries cannot be altered. Whereas in Indian federalism, the state boundaries can be altered, but national boundaries cannot be altered. So there are so many different approaches. Why it is all there? Because the nature of federation, the formation of federation in United States is different. Suppose in Article 1, which says India, that is Bharat, is Union of States, it basically explains everything. And Ambedkar, when he was talking about this particular issue, why you use the word Union of States rather than United States of India, he said that Union of States come into being basically because the component parts of the Indian Union, they have not joined the Indian Union voluntarily. Since they have not joined the Indian Union voluntarily, they don't have any right to go away from it. This is how basically that is the binding nature. So this binding nature of the Indian federalism is very, very important. So the binding nature, for binding nature of the is being reflected in the centralized features of the Constitution. So that is why we have emergency provisions, we have more powerful union government, union legislatures, and residuary power lies with the union government. All these are basically being provided in the Constitution basically for this purpose. And I think this topic will give you some idea about our issues, because the issues among the states is not only political but also financial, because financial issues are very important. Unless and until you resolve these financial resources, because financial resources is the only way where you can get development in the country, because it is the only legitimate legal channel that is available, provided with the Constitution, where from top to bottom or bottom to top, anything can go up and anything can come up. So far, India is able to experiment this particular idea, and we are successful. I think, I believe we are very, very successful in bringing about this federation. Because Indian federalism, I told you in the beginning, is a very unique feature, basically unique in the sense that it is neither like a Canadian federation nor like American federation. It is a very unique basically because everybody is wondering that how this Indian federation is working despite all these differences, all this, and particularly the financial issues, how they are being solved. But we have seen already practically that this Finance Commission played a very, very vital role in solving this problem of fiscal transfers and fiscal imbalances. Thank you.